Kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to our world of darkness, where we've had a bit of a move. We are in a new recording location, I have a new house, and a brand new studio to work in, so I'm very excited about that, and I hope my quality of my videos that I put out for you not only are heightened in entertainment, but also in educational information. So, that being said, there are a couple of things that I would like to handle before we actually get into the topic of today, because it is, in fact, Metaplot Monday, and I am looking so forward to this one. First, I'd like to introduce you all to someone who you've seen many times in these videos, and that is this wonderful skull, this wax-covered skull. I've done my best to get most of the wax off, but as you can see, there's still a good number of it on there. I've chosen that I am going to only, from now on, for you all, burn appropriate candles. So, for vampires, I will either be burning black or red. For werewolf, we'll find green or brown or something like that. But we will have something that's more topical on that. Another thing is, I've had him for years. This is a gift from a friend of mine. I believe I got this back in middle school. And he lacks something very, very important, and that is a name. And I want to put it towards you, my friends of Nodist lore, to name this little guy for me. I don't know, I've just always had a hard time with the idea, but I've always known he's needed one, so he will be joining us. Let's get him back into place. Get our candle lit. Because what is a good lore video without a nice soft light burning in the background? There we go. And there's one last thing. I have been blessed with such wonderful individuals who like to follow this channel and its contents. And that being said, I also do quite enjoy putting out information from time to time. Now, that being said, I would like to highlight one of those people, one of those wonderful individuals who add to not only my viewer base, but also the content itself, because I'm inspired to look into specific things due to your feedback. And True Salubri Seraphel wrote this wonderful comment a week ago. The Holy Inquisition. The first one saved my clan, and now the second one in full swing. The Salubri can finally re-emerge while our allies in the church rid us of the foul usurpers. I love that. I love that very much. It was a very in-character comment, which I find charming, and is, although you can tell that my videos don't tend to be in character as much as a storyteller to people of interest type thing. My response was how interesting it is to consider with the outcome of the Children of Osiris, and also the fact that I don't believe that this Inquisition is going to discriminate between vampires and vampires with what you could call good intentions, especially with the new 5th edition look at the Salubri. The Salubri themselves are darker, and in my thought, the more they use their power on an individual to help them overcome pain, either mental or physical, could turn them more and more into a sociopath, turning them more into dangerous individuals. The Salubri are themselves monsters, whether they believe it or not. Now, that being said, comes to our main topic of the day, which is the Children of Osiris. Now, to do this, I've looked on several sites. I've searched the internet, I've looked at the White Wolf Wiki, but I come to find that the best information on the Children of Osiris is found in the Hunter's Hunted book, which is a source book for Vampire the Masquerade. It's very old. My copy is well loved. And also the Silver Laws of the Night, the Mind's Eye Theater book, which most people I find are more familiar with the second edition revised, but the first edition of LARP have all of the information placed inside of it, where future editions decided that they needed to be more fleshed out, so that you have your Laws of the Night, which handles most of your regular character creation, how to make a basic vampire, and the 13 clans thereof, and several of the bloodlines. They expanded on and had the Camarilla Guide come out, which had information specifically on that sect, along with merits and flaws and backgrounds that exceed what a standard neonate may have access to. The Sabbat Guide, which will handle the anti-tribu versions and the various differences. And also the Storyteller's Guide, which gave a deeper look at some of the more rare clans, such as the Bali, the Nakaraja, and the True Bruja. Now, that being said, the Silver book, the Laws of the Night, Mind's Eye Theater book, that came out had all of the information in it. It was more condensed. It did not have as much, but it had the information you would need to build an anti-tribu, or to have some of the more obscure bloodlines that you don't find in the later books, such as the Children of Osiris. I would like to go over with these things on a more scholarly level by looking at what the books have to say. And I'm going to start with the book that I find has the least useful information, and that would be the Silver Laws of the Night book. The Children of Osiris are a group dedicated to practicing and spreading Osiris's arts to the deserving. Working in the shadows of the vampiric world, the Children of Osiris continue to battle Set and his minions, while preparing for the reawakening of their own lord. Osiris himself saw the embrace of Cain as a violating corruption, as well as a gift of awesome power. This understanding led him to fight the beast, setting forth on an eternal quest to transcend the evil that consumes him. Osiris died a horrible, burning death at the hands of his brother Set, but taught his art to a select few of his children. Unfortunately, all but one of them were destroyed in the great battle along with their sire, Ketemon, who now slumbers in a remote temple far from civilization, was a lone survivor whose awakening the children anticipate. Alright, now, that is some basic information of the Children of Osiris and what they're used for. And to be honest, the discipline section, the advantages and disadvantages, don't really hold much meaning for a current game of Vampire the Masquerade due to the way that things have been changed. Now, I also find that the information given here for the Children of Osiris is a little bit lackluster, and I understand it's a very small book as far as game supplements go, and they tried to condense it down. But if you were to look at the true Legend of Osiris, obviously the myths between kindred and man are completely different, but the Osiris myth is the most elaborate and influential story in Egyptian mythology. It contains the murder of the god Osiris, a primeval king of Egypt, and its consequences. Osiris's murderer, his brother Set, usurps his throne. Meanwhile, Osiris's wife Isis restores her husband's body, allowing him to posthumously conceive their son Horus. The remainder of the story focuses on Horus, the product of the union of Isis and Osiris, who is at first a vulnerable child protected by his mother and then becomes Set's rival for the throne. Their often violent conflict ends with Horus's triumph, which restores Maat, the cosmic and social order, to Egypt after Set's unrighteous reign, and completes the process of Osiris's resurrection. Now, in the world of darkness, Osiris and Set may have been brothers, but they were both embraced. They were both kindred. Scholars of the Nodist lore on the ministry side tend to see this as the original telling of the Cain and Abel story, where the two brothers were in battle, but they were also both embraced. Within kindred mythology, after Isis recovers and then reassembles the pieces of Osiris, he's brought back within a ritual known as rebirth, which is a part of Bardo, the discipline that the children of Osiris are known to practice, wherein Bardo is truly a set of rituals, not an actual discipline. Each of his followers gifted a small amount of their vitae within the ritual to mend the broken flesh of their sire. Now, this ritual did not come without consequence. Yes, it did restore him, but when he did awaken, he lacked the ability to embrace, or even to create ghouls for that matter. Within the mythos of Vampire the Masquerade, this was brought in as infertile vitae. That has become part of the mythos of the Children of Osiris. They do not tend to embrace. Some lore says they cannot. Others say that they just don't out of honor. And what they do is to bolster their numbers, they look for those rare kindred who are worthy of joining their cause. Now, that would also mean individuals who are attempting to raise their humanity over the beast. This does not mean Golconda in any way, because Golconda is the acceptance of your vampiric state, where the practice of Bardo as a religion and a set of rituals is actually more of a denial of your true vampiric nature, to the point where you become more human than human. That being said, I would like to discuss the actual powers of Bardo and what they can be used for. In the Silver Book, Laws of the Night, we come across the discipline of Bardo, where the description says that the discipline of Bardo allows the children of Osiris to protect themselves and others against the forces of evil without using the enemy's techniques. Bardo is a largely preventative discipline, intending more to shore up defense and to heal psychic wounds than to be wielded as an offensive weapon. Now, here's where I come to disagree with things. Not that Bardo should be used as a weapon, but as it not being a discipline. And that's actually a very interesting thing, because when you look at the silver copy of Laws of the Night, Bardo is presented as a discipline. We have 6 levels of this discipline, which is actually kind of interesting. Most of the disciplines would stop at 5, but we have under basics, because the old LARP system was separated by basic, intermediate, and advanced. Under basic, you have Restore Humanitas, which allows a vampire to cleanse themselves of what in these days were known as beast traits. Basically, stains on the humanity that stayed. So you'd be able to cleanse yourself or others of these things. Banishing the sign of Thoth, which is also a basic. The discipline allows them to defend themselves against certain disciplines. Now, in the LARP version of this power, it says that the discipline wards against thaumaturgy, dominate, presence, and aspects. That is all. In the original, which we will go over more thoroughly after this, you were able to defend yourself in a much wider range of things. The banishing sign of Thoth was more worth it. Now, if you do not know anything about Thoth in Egyptian mythology, or if you want to get into more Hermetic learnings, he's a very interesting individual. Thoth is the ibis-headed god, who is the deity of the written word, of magic, and of language. He is also compared very highly with Hermes or Mercury in the Greco-Roman pantheons, and even with the deity Odin. He's also attributed in Hermetic teachings to being the individual where Hermetic got its name from Hermes. Hermes Trismegistus, or Hermes the Thrice Blessed, or the Trice great. Hermes Trismegistus was said to be a philosopher king from the days of Atlantis who came to Egypt and founded that civilization after the loss of Atlantis. Now, I'm not going to go that deep into that. If anybody wants to hear more about Hermes Trismegistus or anything like that, I'll be happy to do a Kindred worldview or a World of Darkness worldview on who that might be. But for all intents and purposes, it is speculated that Hermes was in fact not Kindred, but a mage. And that mage taught the power of banishing signs of Thoth. The banishing sign of Thoth to his ally, the King Osiris. The King Osiris, being a kindred, his seneschal or chamberlain or whatever you want to call it, his advisor, his highest advisor was a mage in Egypt. And this would have been Thoth or Hermes Trismegistus. Now, I'm not going to go on any further on that one. But then there is the boon of Anubis, where the discipline was used to cause a human not to become embraced. You're able to save someone from becoming a kindred. After the boon of Anubis came the pillar of Osiris, which allowed you to create a central altar or a pillar in which you could meditate to reclaim your lost humanity and also to help you to understand and cultivate the powers of a bardo further on your own. Next, we have two advanced disciplines, which is strange. You don't typically have more than one. However, with this one you have the mummification ritual, which was what they did to their enemies when they were evil but did not quite deserve final death. This allowed them to put them into an extended torpor after a ritual, and they did this to many elders of the followers of Set. And then there's Ra's blessing, which actually allows them to walk in the sunlight for a time, depending on how many successes they got during the meditation ritual. And as I said before, and I'm going to say again, I don't care for that version of Bardo, because it is presented as disciplines. And it says basically to meditate for a half an hour here and there. But this is such a more intricate, important set of disciplines that them being seen as sect rituals could actually fit in. I would personally say that the Children of Osiris could very well fit within the contents of Cults of the Blood Gods if one so chose to put them in there. The Children of Osiris are quite expanded upon in the Hunters Hunted source book for Vampire the Masquerade. This book was designed for individuals who wanted to play the vampire hunter, and also to help storytellers create higher level of antagonists instead of the one-offs that you would see in a lot of early games. With the Children of Osiris history in the Hunters Hunted book on page 49, it says, long ago, along the Nile River, a war was waged between two kindred, Sutek, later called Set, and Osiris. They set their broods against one another, violently opposed to each other's moral views. Whereas the followers of Set represented the darkest things in the world, the Children of Osiris longed for a return to the values of humanity, to preservation of the precious humanitas. Set was eventually defeated, but not before the followers managed to destroy most of the children. Osiris was once a philosopher in a grand Egyptian court, embraced by a powerful aristocrat, who longed for him to join the ecstatic joy of the night, and to use his skills in the growing jihad. Osiris's new abilities repulsed him, and the moaning of the beast deep within him shook his spirit. He turned to ancient methods of meditation, and escaped the horrible desires of his new body thrust upon his consciousness. Through great will, magical lore, and deep mystical enlightenment, he achieved an incredible state of control over his degenerating virtues. But the price was an unlife of strong abstinence and discipline. Now it goes on further into this, and they do give some very interesting points. They give current status on how everybody thinks that they're dead. but in fact they work in secret because they typically sequester themselves. Um, to bring the Children of Osiris into a game, it seems more that you would be playing a game fully of Children of Osiris, but to play a single child of Osiris who's on a mission to destroy the ministry in a certain city or something like that. They do have some appearances that they are very simple in their dress. They tend to wear just white flowing robes, or I could actually see more linen style shirt and pants, just something comfortable that's not distracting. They're all shaved bald, including the women, because they don't want aesthetics to overtake their life. Basically, when you play a child of Osiris, you're looking in on the two lifestyles of mindfulness, which is an amazing way to live. If anybody has ever, if we have any mindful individuals, I would actually like to hear from you. I am definitely not an expert at doing it, but having mindful living, where every movement and every action is for a specific purpose, to put yourself directly in the moment and to not allow yourself to have distractions, to live your life exactly as is and be content with it without need to hype it up with over eccentric activities or over eccentric items to keep yourselves busy. And also minimalism, which is a very interesting movement as well, which again, have a few things, but I do tend to have more of a minimalistic lifestyle. These are hardcore minimalists. These are hardcore mindfulness practitioners. And it's all a very interesting thing to be able to play a kindred in this mindset, because you're not even playing it as an individual who wants to be human for being human's sake. You're playing it as a human to be a better human than you ever were when you were just a standard human. It's a very interesting concept for a kindred, and also one that I can see for any clan, which is one of the neat things about this, is that you can be any clan. This is not my antediluvian was Osiris and therefore I am an Osiran as a character, and that being the state, I have these three disciplines. That's not how it works. When you have a character who is a child of Osiris, you started as another clan or as a caitiff who had desire to use mystical means to overcome vampiric limitations. And you were noticed by the Children of Osiris and brought in. And over time, as your humanity got higher and higher, they finally allowed you to learn. They allowed you to learn Bardo and to keep the rituals alive. Because after his resurrection, Osiris did not embrace. He looked for recruits, and so did his childer. Which again is something that's heavily touched on in the Hunter's Hunted book and completely ignored in the first edition Laws of the Night book. Now, another thing is that when you're looking at a child of Osiris, the clan weakness could very well be considered something overcome, because you now have different weaknesses. This is, again, that's storyteller decision on what you wanted to do with that. Is do they throw off the shackles of their old clan? Is the Brujah no longer overcome with rage? Does the Toreador embrace the simplicity of a mindful life to the point where they don't care that things aren't as pretty as they could be? Does Aventru understand that feeding from a specific individual, a type of individual, does not mean as much anymore as you go through the motions of becoming a child of Osiris and a true member of this cult? And it all actually can play in very well when it comes to how Bardo itself works, which we'll be going over soon. But Bardo itself is a set of rituals. It is not a discipline. And as I've read through this incredibly early edition book, Hunters Hunted, and saw Bardo, there is next to no reason it cannot be used in a 5th edition game, because it is written in such an easily modified format, and it's still usable to this day. Now, to my knowledge, the Children of Osiris ended up getting what they wanted to happen. That Osiris came back, or his one child came back. Someone came. Their great undying king came back and was able to present them with a way to be a new level of Bardo, the final level of Bardo, which turns you completely human. And they just went on with their lives. I've also heard that one remained. If one remained, then he would continue on. He would continue looking. Maybe he's looking for, maybe he has sacrificed himself. Maybe it's like the Salubri thing, where after he finds someone, after he finds an acolyte to transform into the new child of Osiris, that he will perform the last level of Bardo and he will move on. And then it is up to his child to find, or it is up to his new acolyte to find a new member who is going to continue on, and so on and so on and so forth. That is a possibility. But are the Children of Osiris gone in your game? And that's actually what I'm getting at here. Because this is Metaplot Monday. It's not a clan discussion. But since I missed the last clan discussion, I figured I'd just throw them both the fucking together, and we'd get double bang for our buck on that one. Because in this book, we look at the plot reasons. When I say book, I mean the Hunter's Hunted version of Bardo. I see something that can easily fit within a 5th edition game, where we have something new, something wholly new, that can come in and shake shit up that nobody's ever used before. I have never been in a game where the Children of Osiris came in, at least not one that I've ever noticed. And I've participated in games that have a lot of players in them, believe me, and there's a good chance that I may have just missed it. But I never did notice it. Now, Hunter's Hunted says, this is the Children of Osiris's discipline handed down since Osiris himself first discovered the path. Now again, I say that this is a set of rituals that you learn. So if you make any clan, you build that character exactly as you would any time. But as they start practicing and following into the Children of Osiris method, they are able to learn the rituals that turn them into a power to be reckoned with. It involves attainment of a constant state of mystical consciousness, only achieved by the living of the rigid ascetic life of the children. It is named after the Tibetan word for the half-world, the place entered between life and resurrection. This is the realm where the Children of Osiris's consciousness resides. So they're not fully here on this realm, but it also has an interesting state of the half-world. Are any vampires ever truly within their bodies? They are, in fact, corpses. They're half in the ground. They're half in the Shadowlands. They're half in they're half in the Deadlands, and they're half in the Lands of the Quick. This discipline is not the same as the state of Golconda, and that's a very interesting thing here. Is that it states that it's not the same as the state of Golconda, which again, I can see using the word discipline as in a representation of it takes discipline to do this, as a personal willpower discipline, not as in the discipline of a vampire. Golconda is the realization and acceptance of the way things are, while the children's disciplines are based on denial. They deny the beast within them by intensely concentrating on their humanitas and their state of death. If a child was to give up his meditations and discipline, he would be assailed by his dark, repressed half, so long denied, the beast unbound. You're suppressing the beast. That's the whole point of Bardo. The child must maintain humanity equal to the highest level of ability, or else lose that ability. For example, a child must have a humanity of 9 to gain the 9th level of attainment. If the child's humanity were ever to drop below the required level, then the ability of that level is lost and must be bought all over again with experience points. The child can counteract this with the first level, with the first discipline. I love that because it also doesn't match the concept of how disciplines work in V5. The idea that you can have, typically, you can have 5 levels of a discipline. This is actually based more on your humanity level. You can have as many levels that you can have for humanity. That is fucking awesome. That is definitely a way of life. That is a disciplined way of life and not a set of disciplines granted by your blood. This has nothing to do with the disciplines, and if by any chance that who's ever working in World of Darkness decides, if Justin Achille decides that it's time to bring the Children of Osiris back in and throw them into Cults of the Blood God Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, or whatever the fuck it's going to be called, I really hope it doesn't end up being a discipline. I don't want to see this being an Auspex plus Dominate amalgam. I love the amalgams, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to see this tainted as a discipline. Because it's not a discipline. It never is. It's stated as a discipline because a discipline, it's a discipline of self, not a discipline of power. So, I could go on forever. But that first level is called Restore Humanitas. The first discipline, it's going to keep saying that, the first discipline taught to new children is the ability to regain lost humanity. The ability must be used within a week of the loss. The user must meditate for 1 hour per point she is attempting to regain. Then, conscious and empathy are rolled with a difficulty equal to the level of humanity being restored. The number of successes is the number of humanity points gained back, though the children cannot gain back more than what were lost. If the roll is botched, the user performs a penance before this ability can be used again. The temple's undying king can recommend the appropriate measures. If this ability is successfully used within a week after losing humanity, then any levels of Bardo lost are regained. That's awesome. And the reason I say that is because it fits so well into B5. Yes, we don't have conscience anymore because we don't have virtues. But if you did like willpower plus empathy or composure plus, I like the idea of composure plus empathy. If you roll composure plus empathy after losing humanity, you can gain it back. You can get it back. And you can't go over what you already lost. So this, aside from the fact that you got to drop the idea of conscience and throw in composure, in my opinion, composure. Storytellers, do what the hell you want. If you got any other ideas, hop in that freaking comment section below and tell me if you have any better ideas, because there's a good chance I might throw the Children of Osiris in my game, and if you guys got better ideas, I'd like to hear it. The idea of being able to use this meditative state, which sounds like a ritual to me, to be able to feel what you did wrong, to revisit that moment and get the proper state of mind where, oh, I did that for the greater good, may have made you lose a humanity trait. Going back and reflecting on what you did that week and going, I could have done that better, and feeling bad about it. Not what the Salubri do here. See, and that's a huge difference on that one, is that the Salubri would make you not care, which divorces you from humanity. This makes you face your shit, and I like that. Level 2, Banishing Sign of Thoth. We're back to that. This was in the other book. Most of these are in the other book, but this was in the other book, and it's better described in this. The child learns the mystic gesture, which can defend against any supernatural influence. The child rolls their dexterity plus occult with a difficulty of 8. The number of successes is the number added to the difficulty roll to any supernatural power attempting to work upon the child. These include thaumaturgy, vampiric disciplines, dominate presence, aspects, etc., lupine spirit magics, and the enchantments of fairy. It will also work against the faith of mortals who are attempting to turn the child or injure them with their faith. Rumor says this ability was taught to the children by Thoth, an ancient mage and powerful ally of Osiris. None know today whether he was a kindred or a powerful mortal, or if he even existed at all. I say he was a mage, since the entire Hermetic teaching is based off of his practices and his knowledge and his legend. I say that he was a mage, and that fits well into my mythos. So again, wondering what yours is. But you can see how that description of the discipline is so much better than what they did for the LARP version. But I understand you've got to compound LARP. You've got to make it work on a different level. Level 3, the Gift of Apis. I don't even think the Gift of Apis is in. I'm checking. I don't think it's in here. No, the Gift of Apis is not in here. The Gift of Apis is not in the LARP book. This level of ability frees the child from the curse of having to drink. Oh, yes, I love this one. And this is the one where I was thinking about how it might actually overcome clan difficulties, clan flaws, specifically if you're looking at Ventrue for this one. This level of ability frees the child from the curse of having to drink from mankind to survive. The child can drink from animals and gain as much nourishment from the blood as from mortal vitae. As long as the proper rituals are maintained, this ability does not diminish with time. The grand undying king of the Children of Osiris has not drunk mortal blood since the fall of Rome. Imagine being a Ventrue, child of Osiris, and being able to overcome your clan weakness due to this. Now we have our Pillar of Osiris again here, level 4. The child can create a Pillar of Osiris, the center of a temple, where the study and meditation of Bardo can be maintained. Any spells or supernatural disciplines practiced within the temple subtract 3 from the difficulty factor to succeed. However, if a child spends an extended time away from the temple, the chance of frenzy increases. For every month away, increase the difficulty roll to frenzy by 1. Also, the instance in which a frenzy are called for increases as well, until after a few months, even the slightest annoyance may trigger it. That's sucky. You gain the Bruja clan flaw for that. Only regular meditation at the temple can prevent the degeneration. Most children reside at a major temple, where fellow sect members aid them in the maintenance of their strict path. But sometimes a child may have to enter the outer world on sect missions. Any place can be turned into a pillar after a night-long ritual. The pillar is an abstract concept of a mystical center and does not require a physical pillar. The child rolls willpower versus the difficulty decided by the storyteller depending on the nature of the location. A secluded cave, never disturbed by violent kindred or mortals, would only be a difficulty of 5. But a city apartment in the most crime-ridden street in the area would be a difficulty of 9. A suburban home in a nice neighborhood would fall in the middle with like a difficulty of 7. The number of successes is the number of weeks the temple may be maintained before another ritual is required. That's pretty fucking cool. I like, and this, again, it gives me hope that you would be able to bring these guys into an outstanding game because people don't believe in them. Having the Children of Osiris becoming mainstay, possibly antagonists in your game if you have a heavy level of ministry. Being able to bring them in like this, away from one of their major temples. You could have 1 or 2 members coming in looking for recruits, trying to steal your game away from you. It's kind of interesting to have NPCs that are there to steal the PCs away from the game. Level 5 is Paradox, which is again not something seen within the Silver Laws of the Night book. With this level, the child has gained enough knowledge in her mystical studies as to innately understand the illusionary nature of the world. She can utter an extemporaneous remark about it, usually a nonsensical phrase or a haiku. The child rolls wits plus manipulation against each listener's willpower. Anyone whom she's successful against suddenly becomes overwhelmed with knowledge of the essential oneness of the universe. They are in a confused trance and must make a willpower roll, difficulty of 7, to successfully attempt any action for the rest of the scene. At the end of the scene, the knowledge will fade away, sunk again into the illusions of the mind. The person so affected by the paradox must add 1 to any difficulty to harm the child after that, as part of their self remembers the bliss the child delivered, if only for a few fleeting moments. Sometimes the phrase's effectiveness can be added by striking the intended listener with a sudden blow while pronouncing the phrase. This subtracts 2 points from the difficulty, the listener's willpower. To be able to walk into the room, and I'm going to use one of my favorite movie quotes on this. I don't know if anybody's seen Empire Records. I love the character Lucas from the movie Empire Records. In fact, I use him as an NPC in the Chronicle that I'm currently running. But to be able to walk into a room and have somebody go, "What's with you today?" and then just look off and go, "What's with today?" And that just blows the person's mind to the point where they are out of commission for the rest of the scene. You are now 2 traits down in anything that you want to do because you're like, what is with today? This isn't real. It's just, I like the idea of the mental fuck, and there's not enough powers out there that actually do that. And also being able to just go, "You're living in an illusion, wake up," and smacking them upside the head just gives them less, just lowers the difficulty for you to do that to them. Alright, so then we move on to level 6, which is Boon of Anubis. This ability allows a child to protect a mortal from the embrace. If a mortal so protected is bitten by a vampire, who then attempts to turn her into one of the kindred, it is ineffective. The vampire will not realize this until after the mortal awakens from their first sleep. The mortal will, however, be considered a ghoul. So you basically just remove the ability to create a vampire and just they turn into a ghoul. The child must prepare herself in a meditative ritual before contact with the intended mortal. She rolls her empathy plus occult with a difficulty of 6. That's interesting. I don't know if you would keep that. You're rolling 2 abilities on that one, empathy and occult. I kind of like that because you don't see that kind of roll very often. But I guess you would probably use either your composure or resolve plus empathy for this in V5 if you weren't going to stick with the abilities there. Which is, I would personally, as a storyteller, make it so that it was composure or resolve, whichever is higher. The number of successes is the number of weeks for which the mortal will be immune. If she fails, she may not try again on that mortal for another lunar month. If she botches, she may never protect that mortal. That sucks. Once successful, all that is required to bestow the protection on the mortal is a kiss. This kiss can be anywhere on the face, but is most often on the forehead, where the mystical third eye resides. So, you spend some time in meditation getting yourself in the right frame of mind. You go to the intended human and kiss them on the forehead. They cannot be embraced for the number of weeks determined by how many successes you've given them. This could very well be the death sentence for anybody who is intended to get the embrace, but it does stop them from becoming a vampire, which could be the lesser evil. Letting them die could just very well be the lesser evil. Level 7, Bring Forth the Dawn. This ability does not actually cause the sun to rise, but instead causes Kindred to sleep as if it were daylight. The children rolls an occult plus manipulation versus the humanity of the Kindred targeted. The number of successes is the number of hours which the Kindred will sleep. The child can affect multiple targets by dividing their dice pool. Any discipline or thaumaturgy ritual which protects against the Kindred during the sleep will work in defending against this level of Bardo. That's pretty fucking cool. I have to give them that. The idea that you can say a couple of phrases as a vampire and they just fall into torpor. A number of hours equal to your successes is a lot of fun. I can think of several people that I would have loved to do this on. I think it's a good way to incapacitate like a follower of Set before you performed this next level, which is so much fun. And it is not only a ritual in my mind, it specifically fucking says ritual on the name of this, which is their level 8 mummification ritual. This allows the child to force a Kindred into torpor and keep her there for a defined period of time. This is a long ritual, so the Kindred must first be constrained against escape during the ritual or incapacitated. The Kindred must be wrapped in ritual bandages to bond her soul and body into confinement. After an 8-hour ritual, the child rolls a willpower versus the willpower of the Kindred. The number of successes is the number of centuries the torpor will last. Hell yes! And I know this sounds sick, but it's an 8-hour ritual. This isn't a one-shot kill, but one-shot kills technically do exist. But this is a willpower roll that will actually put somebody into torpor for a good long time. This is a ritual the Children of Osiris sometimes use against any Kindred they feel are too dangerous to be allowed to move freely in the world, such as a follower of Set. It is a form of punishment for those they feel are evil, yet do not deserve final destruction. The mummified Kindred is then usually sealed up in an ancient ruin hidden from the world. However, the Kindred can increasingly resist the torpor over the years. The confined Kindred can roll her willpower to break the torpor once for every century that passes. The difficulty beginning with a 9, but decreases by 1 every century passed. Ghouls can also be mummified so they can follow their masters into the next eon. That's just fun. And what if the mummification ritual was not only used as punishment? Because it says here that ghouls can also be mummified so they can follow their masters through the eons. What if elder members of the Children of Osiris had this done on themselves so that they could possibly, and I'm stealing from Underworld because fucking Underworld stole from the World of Darkness anyway, what if they decided to leapfrog through time like this? Making sure, like, what if you had elders who then woke up and went, where are the rest of the fucking Children of Osiris? Where the hell are our people? What the hell happened? They could possibly become militant due to that, which would add a whole level of fun conflict into this game, especially if you, again, have ministry in your game. Now, level 9. And we have 2 level 9s because there are no 10th levels, and I'll get to that in a second. Ra's Blessing. After a long period of meditation, a child with this level of mystical ability can walk outside during the day in full sunlight and not come to harm. The child must prepare in a month-long ceremony of asceticism, contemplating the light within. After that time, she must roll her humanity versus a difficulty of 10. The number of successes is the number of hours that she may walk in the day. A botch means that the child cannot try this again for a decade. This ability to look upon the sun can bolster a child's humanity and virtues. For every hour spent under the sun, the child can roll their humanity, or one of their virtues, against a difficulty of 9. A success means that the trait is raised by 1. I love that, because this is an instant raising of your humanity. I do. I really do love that. And it does sound overpowered, except for the fact that if you fuck up this ritual, you can't do it again for 10 years. So it takes it takes a month to prep. It takes a month to prep to do this, and if you fuck it up, you can't do it for 10 years. That's not sick. That's not OP. That is, do you really want to buy this? Because if you fuck it up, you can only use it once, and it doesn't work if you fuck it up. But if you succeed, you use it to bolster your humanity to the highest point, to the point where you can learn more, to go higher. You might actually have to rethink the confines of how humanity works in your game when it comes to these people. Level 9. Another level 9, Rebirth. And this is the ritual that Isis used to bring back Osiris. So this was most likely given by Thoth as well. This powerful ritual allows the child of Osiris to be brought back from final death. The ceremony must be overseen by a daughter of Isis. The daughter of Isis is the consort to the undying king. So if you have a major temple that has a leader who calls themselves the undying king, they typically have a female priestess who helps them along with things, which acts as a consort, and they consider themselves the daughter of Isis. So, just to let you know how that works. All who reside in the dead one's temple must contribute at least 1 blood point each. The condition of the body is unimportant, as long as some part of it is there. So you could have piles of ashes at that point. If you had a pile of ash of a vampire who died, and you vaguely shaped them you vaguely shaped them like a human body, and everybody just poured a little bit of blood inside, it's going to start regenerating over time, which is interesting because this is very much similar to the idea of the effects of the spell of life on mummies. And they're highly connected, which I'm sure we'll cover mummy at some point. The vampire's consciousness has achieved a level of static existence on the astral plane where it can reside until regaining its body. So rebirth is a ritual that you have to have, but other people have to perform on you. The vampire must roll his willpower versus a 10 difficulty. If he succeeds, he can use blood points poured on his body to heal it. When restored to full health levels, the vampire can again live as he has before, but he has lost the ability to create progeny or ghouls. So your blood becomes infertile. While he retains his generation for purposes of domination and other disciplines that rely on generation, his blood no longer is of its original potency, and anyone drinking it whole will not gain that generation. So if somebody commits diablerie on you, they're not going to be able to get the generation benefits. The children can only use this ability once per century. Every 100 years you can die once. That's pretty fucking cool. Or if you have this ritual put on you and you die, as long as they keep you, they can try it again. Note that there are no 10th level bardo. Indeed, none of the children have ever heard a 3rd generation Cainite ever practicing this discipline. Which means that Osiris, the brother of Set, was a 4th generation Methuselah. Now, I know that all seemed very clan discussion-y, and it was. I'm not going to deny the fact that this episode has primarily been in discussion on how this clan works and how the disciplines are and all that shit. And that is absolutely true. I am discussing a clan, but I really want to focus on the idea of what you can do with this clan for part of the metaplot, because there's virtually nothing that I've been able to find. There's no novels, there's no supplements or anything that highly discusses it, except for The Hunters Hunted. The Hunters Hunted goes in to tell you some wonderful, interesting tidbits, and if anybody is interested in it, I will gladly read cover to cover what it has to say. But I'm only going to do that on request because it's kind of detailed and a little bit long. But the idea that they're still out there, that there's still at least one elder or one member, I should just say, of the Children of Osiris who are looking for recruits, who are still hunting the followers of Set, and who very well may try to adopt the remaining Salubri to help bolster their numbers. How amazing would it be if the undying king of a major temple in an area was a Salubri? Would their Obeah and their Valoran practices be conflicted with their Bardo practices? How exactly would that work if they did decide to do that? I like the concept of the Children of Osiris, and I also highly respect the fact that White Wolf at the time, White Wolf, the World of Darkness now, decided to get rid of them because they were most likely either underused or game-changing to the point that I want to point out that they're in the Hunter book. These are vampire hunters. They hunt the evilest of vampires, most of which being the followers of Set, sometimes being members of the Sabbat, but there are some corrupt members within the Camarilla and the Anarch factions. And if the Children of Osiris decided to make a re-emergence, to make themselves known, to make themselves more powerful, and to fight back against the Night, they have a better chance of teaming up with the Second Inquisition than anyone, because they can prevent the embrace. They can come back from the dead. Bardo could possibly, being the fact that it was taught primarily, in my opinion, from what I've been able to read from this, primarily, most likely taught by a mage. There's a good chance that the Children of Osiris still retain Bardo even if they did turn human. Even if they did turn their back on vampire existence, there's a good chance that there are humans walking around with centuries of experience who are ready to help the Second Inquisition take down the evil that are Kindred in the modern Knights. Ministry better be careful, because the Children of Osiris could very well still be out there. Don't think you've ever destroyed an enemy. The Lasombra can probably tell you that, given the fact that there's rumor that the Lasombra Antediluvian is wandering around the Middle East right now, after he's said to have been diablerized. I want everybody to think about the Children of Osiris and what they would do with them in their game settings. How you would use them. Why you would use them. And I'd like to hear about it, if you could tell me. I would love to have that under the comments. I would love this to be a major topic of discussion, because the Children of Osiris are cool. Bardo is an awesome discipline, and it works very well with 5th edition, with barely any changes. Out of all of the levels that we read, that first level had one word that needs to change, and that's it. I am Voivode Maquette. This is our World of Darkness, and I am so happy to be doing this again, because this past week of not being able to record videos has driven me insane. I hope everybody had a good time while I was away, and I have to excitedly exclaim that we are approaching 100 subscribers, which is a hell of a lot of fun for me. I know that doesn't sound like much, but to me it is. And I look forward to hearing from everybody on this topic. Everybody, please keep in mind that I get my ideas for what we need to talk about on Metaplot Monday from you. And when I don't have good ideas to run on, I just read lore sheets, which I'm happy to do because I got a bunch left over. But we will run out of those eventually. So, again, I am Voivode Maquette. This is Our World of Darkness. Thank you for joining me. Good evening.